The USA is not only known for its haunted houses, hotels, and ghost towns, it also has some of the most haunted bookshops. These quiet places, filled with old books and history, often hide chilling secrets. From ghostly whispers between the shelves to books moving on their own, these spooky bookshops have left many visitors unsettled. If you love reading and enjoy a scare, these haunted bookshops in the USA are worth exploring. Now we will visit the most haunted bookshops in the USA. Number 1. Moravian Bookshop. The Moravian Bookshop in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, is not only the oldest continuously operating bookstore in the United States, it's also believed to be the most haunted. Opened in 1745 by the Moravian Church, this bookshop has centuries of history within its walls, and with that history comes eerie legends and spine-chilling tales. Many people who visit or work at the shop have experienced strange and terrifying events that can't be explained. One common report is the sound of whispering voices that seem to come from the empty corners of the shop. Staff members have heard faint conversations or soft words being spoken when no one else is around. These voices often follow them from one room to another. In the basement, things get even more frightening. A former employee once claimed she saw the ghostly figure of a pale man standing near the old storage shelves. She turned to run, and when she looked back, he had vanished without a trace. The store's shelves have also been known to act strangely. Books have flown off them suddenly, even when there's no breeze or movement nearby. Many believe this is the work of a restless spirit trying to communicate. Visitors often feel sudden cold spots in certain areas, even on hot summer days. Ghost hunters who have investigated say these chills could mean a spirit is nearby. One of the most terrifying stories comes from people who have seen a woman in a long white dress slowly walking through the aisles. She disappears near the back of the store, and those who see her also smell a strong scent of old-fashioned perfume. Some mornings, employees have arrived to find locked doors wide open, even though they were securely shut the night before. Security footage has never shown anyone entering or leaving during those times. Phantom footsteps are also a common occurrence. Staff hear someone walking behind them, but when they turn, no one is there. These footsteps echo through the old wooden floors and seem to follow people from room to room. With its deep roots in American history and so many haunted experiences, the Moravian Bookshop has earned its title as the most haunted bookshop in the USA. Number 2. Brattle Bookshop. Brattle Bookshop in Boston, Massachusetts, is one of the oldest and most beloved bookstores in the United States, dating back to 1825. But behind its charming shelves of rare and antique books lies a dark and haunted history that many visitors have experienced firsthand. This historic shop, located in the heart of Boston, has been the site of chilling encounters that make it one of the most haunted bookshops in the country. One of the earliest haunted stories comes from a customer who claimed to see an old man in a top hat staring at her from across the store. When she walked toward him, he turned a corner and disappeared. No one else had seen him. Another strange tale involves the smell of pipe smoke that lingers in the air, even though smoking is banned, and no one inside has a pipe. It always comes from the same section filled with antique history books, where some say a former shopkeeper used to sit and read. One worker reported being locked inside the rare books room. The door had no lock, but it wouldn't open for 10 minutes, and he heard someone breathing behind him the entire time. Another employee claimed that books sometimes rearranged themselves overnight. One night, he perfectly organized a shelf, but the next morning, all the titles were stacked upside down or facing backward. The staff also reported an eerie tapping sound on the windows during rainy nights. When they checked outside, there was never anyone there, and the taps continued as if someone wanted. And a chilling story comes from a young girl who visited the shop with her parents and suddenly pointed at an empty chair, saying, "That man is reading a scary book." But no one else could see the man. One of the most terrifying moments happened when an old ladder in the store's outdoor sale lot tipped over on its own and slammed into the wall. The security footage showed no wind or movement, just the ladder falling violently as if pushed. With decades of ghostly activity, strange smells, disappearing figures, and unexplained movements, Brattle Bookshop has become more than a home for old books. It's a place where the past still lingers, refusing to be forgotten. Number 3. Capitol Hill Books. Capitol Hill Books in Washington, D.C. may look like a charming second-hand bookshop packed with towering stacks of novels, old maps, and rare prints, but many believe it is one of the most haunted bookshops in the USA. Nestled across from the Eastern Market in a Civil War-era building, this cozy, creaky structure hides more than just forgotten stories. It harbors restless spirits, too. Over the years, both staff and customers have reported chilling events that can't be explained. One evening, a staff member was closing up when he heard the sound of typewriter keys clacking in the fiction room upstairs. Thinking someone had stayed behind, he went up to check, but found the room empty. The noise stopped as soon as he entered. The next morning, an old manual typewriter that hadn't worked in years was mysteriously out of place, sitting in the center of the floor. In another unsettling event, a customer was browsing when she felt someone brush past her and whisper, "Don't pick that one." She turned quickly but found no one nearby, and the book she had been reaching for was a horror novel based on real-life murders. Another tale involves a mirror in the shop's narrow bathroom hallway. Several visitors claimed to have seen a woman in 1940s-style clothing behind them in the mirror, only to find they were completely alone when they turned around. One night, after a book reading event, an employee was locking the front door when he noticed the lights on the second floor flickering rapidly. When he went up to investigate, he heard faint jazz music playing from a room with no speakers or radios. The music stopped the moment he opened the door. One visitor once brought in a rare book to sell. As the staff examined it, a strong scent of roses filled the room, followed by the sound of heels clicking on the wooden floor. No one else was present, and the scent vanished within seconds. Employees have also found books rearranged into strange patterns overnight. One morning, all mystery novels had been stacked into a pyramid. And finally, an old clock in the poetry section has been stuck at 3:33 for years, despite multiple attempts to fix it. Some say that's when the spirits wake. Capitol Hill Books is more than a store. It's a haunted maze of pages and ghosts from the past. Number 4. Tattered Cover Bookstore. The Tattered Cover Bookstore in Denver, Colorado, especially the Lodo location, is more than just a place for book lovers. It's a building steeped in history and filled with unexplained and terrifying activity. Located in a former 19th century mercantile warehouse, the building has seen over 100 years of life, death, and change. Staff and visitors have reported many strange happenings, making it one of the most haunted bookshops in the USA. One night, a staff member shelving books heard heavy footsteps on the floor above. Thinking someone had stayed behind, she went to check, but found the upper floor completely dark and empty. The strange part was, the footsteps continued behind her as she walked back down the stairs. In another chilling event, a worker in the stockroom claimed to have felt someone tugging at her apron. When she turned around, no one was there. She later discovered an old ledger book had opened by itself to a page listing names from the 1920s, including someone with her same last name. One late evening, a customer browsing in the old fiction section swore he saw a man dressed in a 1920s suit staring blankly at him from between two shelves. When he blinked, the man was gone. He described the figure as cold-looking, with sunken eyes like he didn't belong in this time. A terrifying moment occurred when a group of children on a school visit became frightened and pointed to a dark corner where they claimed a tall woman in black was watching them. Adults saw nothing, but the children were so shaken, the visit ended early. One of the oldest tales involves an antique elevator that hasn't worked in years. Sometimes it makes a loud ding sound at exactly 9:47 p.m. and the doors open slightly on their own. No power is connected to it anymore. A Rare Books manager once said she returned from lunch to find dozens of books from her locked display case stacked neatly on the floor. There were no signs of forced entry. Finally, a blurry figure has appeared multiple times in photos taken near the old warehouse windows, always in the same spot. The figure wears a hat and appears to be looking down at the street, as if waiting for something or someone. Number 5. The Haunted Bookshop. The Haunted Bookshop in Mobile, Alabama, lives up to its eerie name. Located in the heart of historic downtown, This cozy little shop hides more than just dusty pages and old novels. It's known by locals and visitors alike as one of the most haunted bookshops in the entire United States. Strange things have happened here that even skeptics have trouble explaining, and each story adds to its growing reputation for being deeply haunted. One late evening, a staff member was closing alone when she heard a loud crash from the front room. She rushed in to find a stack of mystery books had been knocked over in a perfect circle. No windows were open, and no one else was inside. Another time, a customer browsing the poetry section felt a cold breeze on her neck and turned to see a man in an old-fashioned coat looking straight at her. He faded away right before her eyes, leaving her frozen in shock. A visiting author once did a reading in the back room, and during the session, her microphone kept cutting out whenever she spoke about the supernatural. After the event, she found her notes torn down the middle, even though no one had touched them. A more playful spirit is said to live near the children's section. Several times, alphabet blocks have been found rearranged to spell out words like run or stay. Employees have checked the cameras, but no one is ever seen touching them. One of the most chilling stories happened when a couple was taking photos inside the shop. Later, they noticed a shadowy figure standing behind them in the reflection of a glass bookcase. No one had been near them at the time. Another employee once stayed late to finish inventory. As he worked, he heard a man's voice clearly say, "You don't belong here." When he turned around, the room was completely empty. Perhaps the most frightening tale came from a delivery driver who refused to come back. He claimed he saw someone peering at him through the shop's front window at night, even though the store had been locked and the lights were off. The haunted bookshop continues to offer more than stories. You might become part of one. Number 6. Baldwin's Book Barn. Baldwin's Book Barn in Westchester, Pennsylvania, is one of the most unique bookstores in America. Housed in a 5-story stone barn built in 1822, it holds thousands of rare books, antique maps, and old manuscripts. But it's not just the books that draw people in. Many believe this centuries-old barn is deeply haunted. With creaky wooden floors, narrow staircases, and dim lighting, the building itself sets a ghostly mood, but the real fright comes from the strange and unexplained events that happen inside. One of the earliest and most disturbing stories comes from a man who visited in winter. As he walked through the cold building, he suddenly felt someone breathing heavily on his neck. He turned quickly, expecting to see another visitor, but he was alone in the room. In another case, a former employee was shelving books when he noticed a pair of muddy boot prints appear behind him on the wooden floor. No one else had entered, and the prints stopped suddenly, leading nowhere. A local college student reported hearing the sound of a baby crying on the 3rd floor, but there were no children in the shop. She followed the noise, but it faded into silence. When she asked the staff, they quietly admitted it wasn't the first time that had happened. Another terrifying experience came from an elderly woman who claimed she saw a man in colonial clothing standing in front of the fireplace reading a book. When she tried to speak to him, he walked straight through a bookshelf and disappeared. A regular customer once brought his dog into the store, and the animal refused to go up the back stairs. It barked and growled at something invisible, fur standing on end. The man had to carry the frightened dog outside. One night, a staff member working late heard an old radio playing swing music from the 1940s. When he searched for the source, he found an unplugged antique radio sitting on a shelf. The music stopped as soon as he touched it. Another story tells of books rearranging themselves into crosses on the floor of the theology room. This happened 3 times over 1 week, always after closing. Baldwin's Book Barn is more than just a store. It's a place where the past still speaks, and sometimes it whispers in the dark. Number 7. Porter's Square Books. Porter's Square Books in Cambridge, Massachusetts, is known for its warm atmosphere, community events, and wide selection of books. But behind its cozy charm lies a series of haunting stories that have left staff and visitors deeply unsettled. Located in a historically rich area near old rail lines and buried foundations, the shop has gained a quiet reputation for being one of the most haunted bookshops in the USA. Over the years, strange and terrifying experiences have taken place within its modern walls, leading many to believe that something from the past refuses to leave. One employee working an early morning shift heard the distinct sound of a bell ringing from the back room. Thinking someone had entered, she went to greet them, but the room was empty and the door was locked from the inside. Another time, a delivery man was dropping off boxes when he saw a child in old-fashioned clothing sitting in the corner of the cafe. He smiled and nodded, but when he looked again, the child had vanished without a sound. A customer browsing the history section once felt their arm grow freezing cold and heavy, as if someone was holding onto it tightly. They looked down and saw the faint outline of a handprint forming on their sleeve. One of the most unsettling stories came from a local author during a book signing event. As she spoke about her ghost story novel, every microphone in the store cut out at once, and the lights above her flickered for several minutes. Late one evening, a barista cleaning up noticed the espresso machine turning on by itself, spewing steam, even though it had been powered down. When she unplugged it, it hissed once more before going quiet. Another staff member, shelving in the children's section, heard someone humming an old lullaby. She assumed it was a coworker until she realized she was alone, and the sound was coming from an empty closet behind her. The final story involves a row of books about local legends that fell to the ground one by one, as if being pushed by invisible hands. This happened on 3 separate occasions, each time near closing. Porter Square Books may appear welcoming and bright by day, but its nights are often filled with ghostly reminders that something else lingers among the shelves. Number 8. Booksmith. Booksmith in San Francisco, California, located in the heart of the historic Haight-Ashbury neighborhood, is a beloved independent bookstore known for its eclectic charm and creative spirit. But behind the colorful displays and shelves packed with literature, there are stories of haunting encounters that have chilled even the most devoted readers. Locals say the land it sits on was once the site of mysterious fires and tragedies long before the shop existed, and now something unseen lingers within its walls. One evening, a cashier closing up noticed a book lying on the floor near the front window. When she went to pick it up, she saw a clear reflection of a man in the glass, tall, wearing a brimmed hat, standing behind her. She spun around, heart racing, but the store was empty. A week later, a visiting author fainted during a reading after claiming to feel something grip her ankle beneath the podium. There were bruises shaped like fingers around her leg the next day. A long-time customer recalled browsing in the science fiction section when he heard heavy breathing just inches from his ear. No one was near him, and the air had gone suddenly cold. Another terrifying incident happened when an old rotary phone, part of a vintage display, began to ring loudly. It hadn't been connected for years. When a staff member jokingly picked it up, all they heard was static, and then a low voice whispering their name. Late one rainy night, an employee doing inventory noticed a trail of wet footprints appearing down the center aisle, even though no one had entered and the doors were locked. The prints stopped in front of the horror shelf and vanished. A customer once approached the front desk in a panic, saying she saw a woman crying in the poetry section. When staff went to check, the woman was gone, but a book of tragic love poems lay open on the floor, with pages soaked in tears. Finally, the lights in the back room sometimes flicker in a pattern, 3 short blinks, a pause, and one long flash. This happens only at 10:17 p.m., and no electrician has found a reason why. Booksmith is more than a bookstore. It's a portal to the unexplained. Number 9. The Last Bookstore. The Last Bookstore in Los Angeles, California, is famous for its stunning book tunnels, whimsical displays, and massive collection of new and used books. Located in a former bank building from the early 20th century, it draws visitors from around the world. But beneath the beauty and creativity lies a darker presence. Many believe this iconic bookshop is haunted, not only by the ghosts of forgotten stories, but by spirits that never left the buildings past behind. One of the earliest reports came from a security guard who claimed he saw a man in an old banker's suit walking down the marble stairs after midnight. When approached, the man vanished before reaching the bottom. Another incident involved a customer who got lost in the labyrinth upstairs. She tried to find the exit, but ended up in a dark corridor that didn't exist on the map. When she finally escaped, she said the walls had whispered her name. In the old vault room, which now houses horror books, people often feel dizzy and anxious. One visitor fainted inside and later said she heard dozens of voices arguing all at once. Another chilling event involved a staff member sorting books who saw all the price tags on a shelf slowly curl up as if being peeled by invisible fingers. A ghostly woman in red is often seen near the book tunnel. She walks silently, trailing her hand along the spines, then disappears through the wall. Employees refuse to enter that part of the store alone at night. One night, a stack of books in the rare section collapsed violently with no one nearby. Surveillance footage showed the books flying off the shelf as if thrown by an unseen force. Another worker reported hearing typewriter keys tapping behind the customer service desk after hours. When she checked, there was no machine, only a dusty ribbon on the floor that hadn't been there earlier. Finally, a mysterious cold wind sometimes blows through the store on hot days, strong enough to rattle shelves. It always comes from the basement, which is now sealed off. The last bookstore may celebrate imagination and beauty, but behind every page, something ghostly waits in silence, reminding visitors that stories aren't the only things that live here.